Everybody's KHANTEHNT!
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode where we're talking about your favorite show and ours, Re:Zero.
Re:Zero, Season 2's first half.
Finale.
Final 4 episodes. But first, make sure that you go to our Subscribe Star and become a subscriber for $10 to get bonus episodes about interesting OVAs. KHANTEHNT!
そしていつか必ず私を殺しに来てね。
So, we're off with a bang, off to the races. We just saw the real witch. Now, we've got it figured out now, folks.
Yes.
We know which is which is which. And the Witch of Envy does in fact seem to show up or something and is sucking up everybody, and we're just right into the middle of it, and that's kind of cool. The witch is here, she's doing stuff. It is really funny that the way that this scene resolves is that Subaru flees, attempts to completely get out of the situation, and ends up enveloped by the Witch of Envy, who loves him. This is the whole thing about the Witch of Envy seems to love him for whatever reason, and is then granted all this exposition information directly into his brain from all the other people that were absorbed.
Yes,
amazingly convenient.
His consciousness is fused with with everyone who she had eaten, I guess, all her victims.
Yeah.
And so he now has just like little fragmentary glimpses of the memories of these people. And which you and I both immediately were like, no.
This is like such hack
worst.
writing. Such hack, like every problem now has a solution because he's just gonna reach back in his mind. Interestingly though, see, this is just the other side of the coin. You know how many times Subaru uses this information from this like world-changing event? Exactly once to move the plot forward immediately after this and never again.
He like goes to a place and he's like, I saw this in one of those consciousness fragments. So we were immediately like, there you go. That's what I thought was going to happen.
In another anime, an event like this would have been the single most cataclysmic and like story-altering event of the entire series. Yeah. But in this particular instance, it's just dealt for one moment of exposition. And by the way,
surely it'll come back.
I disagree.
You don't think so? I think
don't.
It'll be 20 fucking episodes from now. It'll be like, oh, remember that time I did consciousness fusion? I have another memory from that.
You know what? You're probably right. And just, to get out of the way, it is like this season has ended on like kind of a weird cliffhanger right in the middle of an arc. We're still doing the whole sanctuary thing. We've got to resolve this. It's been 13 episodes of doing this so far. And, I legitimately am not that, like, mad that the plot threads have been left unfinished, because they're just going to pick it up right where it left off.
I am mad.
Yeah?
I'm so mad, because this show never ties anything up. Like, okay, there was a couple. We found out about Rosenthal. That was, like, the biggest, by far the biggest revelation of the season.
Roswaal, yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't do that.
This was really quite an experience watching these batch of episodes. So it's like we were making some deductions that there are walls of text. Look, I 100% stand by everything we've said about how this show just hits you with information. Let's just go all over the place. Like, for example, at the end, like in the last episode, we're presented with a scene where after the latest like earth-shattering like spiritual event that Subaru's dealing with, we have like a full 1-minute scene directed at his fucking horse lizard and dealing with like the emotional connection between him and the fucking lizard. I don't care. You don't need to spend any time on that. It's a fucking horse lizard.
It's a ground dragon.
It's a ground... Look.
You clearly don't know the lore, and I want to address this because there was reading through comments on our videos. Some of the criticisms were that like you're not supposed to know what's going on because Subaru doesn't know what's going on. He just showed up in this world. He doesn't know the lore, right? You know what else that's true of? Every show. Like, every show, you as a viewer don't know the lore. You learn it through the characters and the scenarios, and typically there is a protagonist who doesn't know everything that's going on and he learns things from other people. Subaru gets these long conversations with people where they just tell him fucking nothing. And it's like they're trying to get something out of him. He's trying to get something out of them, but they just speak in vagaries for minutes on end. And it'll always be, I wrote down one of these fucking lines.
Please regale us.
So infuriating. Actually, there's a few. There was a part where, during the witches' tea time, where they are talking about the thing that's always prefaced with, in the end.
Yeah, I didn't really get that.
Sloth says, Witch of Envy always does this thing, or not envy, greed. Witch of Greed.
Echidna.
She says, are you about to say that thing that's always prefaced with in the end? And then a few minutes later, he's like, oh, what's that about? And she says, it's the thing that's always prefaced with in the end. What is that? Just fucking tell me! I don't want to have to fucking remember this! I don't want to have to sit here and I wonder what the phrase that always is prefaced with in the end is.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought the implication of that scene was that, and we paid a lot of attention this time. We were really clued in. I tried. I think the implication of that was they were talking about, like, the greater good. Like, I forget the specifics of that conversation, but that whatever they were discussing, whatever plans were being made, in the end, it will achieve X, Y, Z, as in like an ends justify the means, or just trust what's going on.
But what is going on?
That wasn't clarified.
All I want to know, like, for 1 second, I want to know what the fuck is going on. Like, every time, it'll be like, he starts the round, all this crazy shit happens, then he starts over, and then a whole bunch of new crazy shit happens.
Yeah.
And I do think on some level this is the point, that he's just becoming so overwhelmed, and Roswaal kind of says, like, I'm deliberately trying to make it so you can't save everyone. He wants him to develop such resolve that he is willing to sacrifice others for the sake of Emilia. So he's forcing that situation, or at least he's saying so. I would imagine he actually believes that Subaru can save everybody.
If you have infinite tries, you can save everyone if you just try infinite possibilities. I mean, for sure, right? Unless you go crazy first, which I guess is the danger here, that Subaru just literally loses brain function and cannot actually do anything even when respawning. That's a danger, I suppose.
It's just like, we had the scene in an early episode where Betty is like, you can't look at my book, blah, 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 I don't like you, go away, right? And we were like, wonder what's going to happen with her. So then later on, he finally makes it to the library and has the conversation with her where he's like, he sees the book and it doesn't have any information. It turns out that it stopped telling her future a long time ago, and she's actually in this library just waiting for that person to arrive.
Anohito.
And she thinks it might be Subaru, but she's just been waiting for that person to come along so she can die. Like, the original conversation with Betty was this long, weird, emotional, vague, boring conversation that accomplished nothing. This conversation...
It established that she was just following the script of the book and had no agency. Question, if the book was blank all along, literally what script was she following, and how did she know any of the things Subaru was going to do? Did it go up to... It's blank. There's nothing in it. I don't feel this is on me, that I'm confused as to exactly what's going on with the specific contents of that book. How much did it really tell her? I don't know, and I'm confused and scared.
I just didn't understand why these two scenes were split like 6 episodes apart, and there was nothing, there's no what he understands at the end of the first conversation is pretty much what he understands when he comes into the second conversation. It's just like he gets back to her.
He gets kicked away for 6 episodes.
Confronts her about what he could not, failed to confront her with the first time, which is looking at the book.
You know, Digi, I'd never shy away from calling you a dumbass.
Okay.
But, and saying a lot of your points are terrible all the time. But on this show, you know, our commenters have been saying some stuff about how the thing about ReZero is it really is largely a mystery show. And like the point that you make about hating pointless mysteries that just carry you along without information to just eventually just tell you things that they could have told you at any time, that is a perfect example of what's happening with Betty here. I really feel that. We're just dragging it out just to have more runtime so we can get back to it later.
And every conversation is so long and filled with so much of it. So much of characters constantly just basically stating, I have more information I'm not giving you. Ha ha.
That's true, and I mean, I would argue it's maybe like a different shade of the same sin, that characters like make declarative statements. This is a very anime thing, about like how they feel, about how they deduce that you feel. None of it means anything. It's all totally subjective and speculative, and of course every character says like, wow, that's the most insightful thing I've ever heard, of course you're right. And they all just like feed into each other's delusion because it's a fake world where none of this matters and they can say whatever they want.
Well, and that's the other thing. There's just so much data because
it's overwhelming.
Like in a normal arc of a show, you will learn some new things that will be resolved by the end of that arc, and then there will also be information that contributes to the larger whole of the story. This is like normal storytelling. In this show, you'll have an arc that raises a bunch of questions, answers none of them, and then another arc that raises a bunch of questions and answers none of them, and each one will still continue the overall narrative in some small way, but it just keeps building and building until you've got like a few loose ends tied up, and then all this shit that you're like, how much of this information is going to matter? Like, how much do I need to have remembered about Beast Boy, for instance? Like, will he be relevant forever? Is he going to die by the end of the arc? Will he do anything I care about?
This is my great question about our first video that people shit on us for, and understandably so. We made a lot of technical mistakes, and I get that. Although I would say the confusion was somewhat justified, because it's a confusing story with a lot of jargon and techno stuff. I would just argue, like, looking back now that we finished this half a season or whatever, how much difference did that missed information make to our appreciation of what's going on? I would argue maybe some, but not that much.
It's impossible to know what information is going to be relevant or not, because it's like, okay,
I don't want to defend myself. We made mistakes, that's fine.
I wrote down mana arrows of stagnant time.
Ah, Beatrice's classic. Did you know shadow magic can be used for offensive techniques? It's like we're supposed to know. Of course it can't, you idiot. Of course not.
Right.
That might have been covered at one point briefly.
I don't remember
when he was learning shadow magic.
Did they tell him it's only defensive? Was that ever said?
I think they said it might have been mostly.
The person she's fighting against says it like she's fighting against the Bow Hunter, and she's like, did
Good
you
old
think
Elsa.
shadow magic could only be used for defense? And it's like, why would she think that? Why would you assume she thinks that?
Like this well-established piece of lore.
I don't fucking know.
Maybe in the light novels, it's like they've really reviewed like magic sets, and so this is one of the lines that gets grandfathered into the anime. But in context, considering we haven't spent as much time, maybe now, like, of course, we'd be... The way that line is presented is so telling. And frankly, I think it mirrors kind of the viewers, like our audience's reaction to our lack of technical information. Maybe these guys, they're like on the wiki, they know all the details, and they're like, of course shadow magic. Like, that may have been mentioned once, briefly, but you can't tell me it was like a hugely important thing to the narrative.
Well, and here's my question. Do I need to remember I mean, okay, so possibly her using offensive shadow magic. Subaru is a shadow magic user. Maybe I could see somebody who's excited about this show being like, ooh, maybe he's going to learn that technique. Maybe he'll get some offensive shadow magic. Like, is that what I'm supposed to be excited about? Like,
I don't know.
Or am I supposed to just, like, mana arrows of stagnant time? She fires these arrows.
Mana arrows of stagnant time. Sit on that one for a moment. Okay.
It's a bunch of crystal-looking
They just look
arrows.
exactly like Emilia's ice attack. That's all it is.
They all hit Bow Hunter, and she
Elsa.
seemingly freezes, like as though encased in ice, and like breaks apart. Isn't the case. She's fine and stabs Beatrice.
Is she a shadow magic user too? Is there trickery going? I don't know.
I don't know why. I don't know what
They
the mana
do
arrows.
not.
I thought, they must be stopping time for her or something. They were not effective.
They could have clarified that if they wanted to. They chose not to clarify that.
Do I need to remember the mana arrows of stagnant time?
I don't know.
I mean, obviously I will after saying it 20 times, but like those are the kind of details where it's just like the characters will just go on and on. Do I need to care about Beast Boy's feelings for Ram? Ram? Is that going to like factor into the story at some point? Is there going to be like...
Well, see, think about it.
So many.
That point right there about... Because it does matter in one sense. It matters in the scene where we see Roswaal revealed to be kind of a bad guy. I think there's going to be more to the story, but he's a bad guy for now. And he kills Ram and Beast Boy at the same time. And it matters because he's really, really sad that Ram's dying. And it's a little plot relevant that Roswaal's able to finish him off while he's distracted by Ram. So it mattered emotionally. It mattered to people who care about like Ram and this guy's relationship and are deeply affected by like the characters' deaths on screen. It mattered. Is that you? If that's you, okay, great. Then like these technical details of these relationships do matter. To a larger, like the point of the story, did it matter? I mean, I guess it's subjective. For me, not that much.
There was a part where one character asked another character a question and they responded, "Don't make me say why."
When was that? I don't remember.
It's like towards, I think it's in the last episode, but and then he just proceeds to explain why anyways.
Wasn't that the scene? That was the scene where the horse, the lizard horse, didn't want to clarify why it went in and saved Subaru from the temple. The answer to that question, we now know. It's because he likes her. Because he likes Subaru and cares about him. And it was just like a didn't want to divulge this like personal detail. That was the scene I was talking about before. It took up so much time for this little detail that the horse likes Subaru. And we already know that. Yeah. We already know. Does it add to your appreciation for ReZero knowing that the horse is like a little bit of a tsundere for Subaru? Even though we literally know it already cares, so the tsundere thing doesn't make any fucking sense.
I wrote that down because of the fact that that statement is just like the epitome of all the dialogue I hate in this show. Is characters don't want to explain themselves. They actively reject explaining themselves, and it's always to keep this mysteriousness where it's like, ooh, does everybody have ulterior motives? What's everybody's real plans?
Yeah.
But it's just like, I can't relate to a character if I don't know what their motivations and goals are. Like, the only character in this show, like, we know Subaru's goal is basically just help and protect Emilia.
Right.
So for this season, Emilia's trying to do the sanctuary ritual, Subaru's trying to help her with the sanctuary ritual. Everyone else, because they're presented in such a mysterious way, and most of the characters never just outright state what they're trying to do, or if they do, it turns out to be duplicitous, it turns out there's plot twists, and it's just like, I can never get into anyone's head. It's all just a bunch of snarky, smiling assholes fucking with each other.
There's one character who is not like that, and it's our boy Otto. Otto is like the new golden child of ReZero, and that boy is still a background character. His whiny voice, his shitty design, the fact that his introduction was killing Subaru out of pure cowardice. There's no way I'm gonna ever care about Otto unless and until he does something like really impressive, which he has not done. He's just died like fodder many times at this point. So getting back to like the chronology of these episodes, just at the beginning, I talked about how what a hack writing thing it is to just have Subaru absorb all these villagers' knowledge. He can pull that out at any time he wants to. Okay, fine. But what was the point of all that? Literally the point of that scene was so that Subaru would have the knowledge of Ryuzu's like true body location. Because we find out.
I totally fucking forgot about the fucking Ryuzu shit.
That happened too.
Like okay, we spent like half a fucking episode just having the Ryuzu clones explained to us. We didn't learn anything about her.
Who made them? Where they're from? We don't know. God damn it!
Ryuzu has no personality, has done nothing effective so far. So the lore purpose is that like there's these, by continuing to like put a consciousness in new vessels, you can live forever kind of thing.
That was Echidna who made Ryuzu as like a clone thing. That was her plan, but it didn't work, so she couldn't be immortal, but Ryuzu now exists. Okay, fine. That's the origin story. You can sum that up in 30 seconds.
It was like 15 minutes of non-stop exposition, which, by the way, Ryuzu wears a thing in front of her face, so there's not even mouth movement. It's just like static shots of two characters standing and talking.
That's true.
Forever, in like a monotone robotic voice. And because of the monotone robotic voice and the fact that they're all clones, again, there's no personality. It's just exposition dumping. And then what this all leads up to, I'm sure Ryuzu will do something else in the other half of the season.
Probably.
But where we're at right now is there's like a part where they have a bunch of them suicide bomb
That actually happened before this, at the beginning of the episode.
Oh, that was before
That was to escape from the witch
Okay.
earlier on. But
So that was how they established that there were a bunch of them.
Yes,
Then they
yes.
explained them. So they didn't do anything after that.
They didn't do anything. We just
half
learned
an
that
episode
they're
of fucking
there.
Exposition, and then we didn't do anything with them for 3 fucking episodes.
It's just, this is the thing. This is the thing. Look, I didn't hate these
How
episodes.
much of that did I need to know?
It's just, that's the question. It always comes down to the question of efficiency.
Yeah.
Did we need a 10-minute scene explaining the deep origin and connections to Echidna?
Well, you know what I'm afraid
and I know
of?
they mattered.
What I'm afraid of is that all of it will matter. That like every single sentence of it will come up over the course of hundreds more episodes.
Look, even if that happens...
And then I'll get made fun of for not remembering that,
well, yeah.
didn't you realize that Ryuzu fucking was made in this country, you idiot? Like,
look,
she has these powers.
that's fine. That's all fine. But what were the tangible details that we actually learned? I really think I know them. It's that Ryuzu is like a clone creature. Okay, that's fine. She exists. She was made by Echidna as an attempt to obtain immortality, which obviously didn't work because she fucking died along with most of the other witches. And they like are guardians of the shrine, and we learn like a little bit more about Echidna's connection to the land and why she made it and all that stuff. Okay, I got all that. The scene was way longer than it needed to be to communicate that information, and I'll even give you, it was like 5 times as long. If it was twice as long, I could let that go.
You want to talk about a scene that was 5 times longer than it needs to be? The "Use Me" speech from Echidna, where all the witches show up to have the witch tea time, and like Echidna gives this big megalomaniacal speech about how you can just use me, I'll be your partner in crime, you can use me for whatever you want. But like she's just saying the same thing over and over and over again with more emphasis for like fucking 2 whole minutes. Like the speech goes on and on to the point that I stopped paying attention to it. I just didn't care anymore.
And you know, I was paying attention and I was curious. I was thinking like, oh man, they're just gonna miss some important stuff. You didn't miss a thing.
I could not continue to follow. Like she just kept over and over
and
it's the
fine.
Same thing.
I get it. I understand they're trying to emphasize. It's just not good writing when you state the same point 10 times in a row. I get it. I fucking get it.
A lot more than 10 in that scene. But so ultimately, what the whole the witches and everybody are trying to sort of impart onto Subaru is that he needs to take better care of himself and not view himself as an expendable, killable guy, because he's killed himself a whole bunch of times to reset the timeline, and
this appears to be what the second trial is getting him to realize of the
they sort of posit to him that, you know, if any of those universes still exist out there, then everybody's sad about his death, you know. And so there's like heavy implication that Satella is like just Emilia from like a future, or who has seen his death like hundreds of times and gone crazy or something. Like
she looks exactly the same, first of all, and then all this, why does she love him? It sure seems like there's going to be some time loop or something going on.
It seems like her pain is the fact that he doesn't like himself. Like she wants him to like himself as much as he likes her. And I think all of that is actually good. That is a good idea of how to explore Subaru's character, the idea that he's putting himself out there too much, and like just by like in the same way that like Echidna gives him the whole long speech about use me up, like that is how he wants to be treated too. He just lets himself be a tool for everybody, and like particularly early in season 1, like when he was at the, working as a butler and everything, it's like just put me anywhere you need me, I'll do whatever, you know. And they're kind of like, hey, like that's cool and all, but do it in a way that doesn't kill yourself, you know, or like...
Or he should be one of the people who he's trying to save, not just allow himself to forever be the sacrificial lamb. He shouldn't want to die, which is, yeah, I mean, I agree, reasonable point. And the particular kind of power he has is one that's naturally going to result in like a devaluing of your own life and existence. Although I would argue that it's not really much of a problem, because he really can just keep coming back to life, and it really isn't a problem. Yeah. But just like Inception, like if you kill yourself, you wake back up, so you get tricked into thinking that you can keep killing yourself, and in real life you might kill yourself. We wouldn't want him to be convinced he can always do that, because one day this will probably end, and he should stop killing himself at that point.
I only had one more actual note written down. Another thing that I did like, which is the Roswaal conversation in the last episode, where we have his big heel turn. And Subaru says, you're insane. And he's like, yeah, I've been insane for a long time. Why aren't you insane? Like, why are you still, like, you're in an unreasonable situation and you're still clinging to humanity and sanity, you know? And I would suppose that the answer to that question is that, you know, the thought that there is a humanity to return to might be necessary to keep yourself going for him. But, like, it kind of begs the question of, like, how long before Subaru, like, does become a sociopath and lose his mind? Like, how much death do you have to see? How many rigmaroles do you got to go through before you just become fucking numb to it all? And is Roswaal just Subaru from the future as well?
It's possible, because why is he so attached? Now, now this is one of those points I might be wrong. I think that Roswaal's attachment, is towards Echidna specifically, not to the Witch of Envy. I could be wrong about that. That was what I kind of read, and it wasn't clarified. Maybe we'll find out. But, I mean, that point might help us figure out if he really is Subaru or, like, somebody else, literally. Or maybe it's just a figure of speech. I don't know. I
mean, we have no idea how, like this show has time magic. It has, like, really high-level magics in it. It's got all kinds of reality fucking warping marble shit.
Yeah.
There are now suggestions of the possibilities of, like, a multiverse or other timelines continuing to exist. So, like, again, I always find myself in the position of feeling like there is so much mystery in this world that I could not reasonably even attempt to predict anything that's going to happen. And if this really is a mystery show, you should be able to figure some things out.
And I think that's I think that's what you and I have issue with. It's that it is presented many ways like a mystery show. The fact that when he dies and he doesn't know who kills him, it's like, who did it? We have to, like, discover who it is. But then he doesn't do anything clever to figure out. He just revives and is just presented with the facts. Yeah. So it's not, it works for what it is, but it's not, like, interesting. It doesn't keep you going along like a good, like, Sherlock Holmes story or something.
I feel like at least back in season 1, there was more of a tendency for it to be like Subaru dies, and then he tries to identify, like, how did I die and why, and what can I change to make things not go that way? And that's still true in this season, but it starts to get muddy because of the fact that things go so differently each time.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't feel like we're chipping away at anything, you know? Like, when we get through the first trial, it's like a bit of progress, and then there's a lot of confusion about, like, how the trials are even going to continue, and then all of a sudden we're in the second trial. After he beats the second trial, well, he doesn't beat it, right? He just gets kicked out?
I think he has cleared the second trial, but he has lost his ability to do, like, the third and final one because he lost the
So there are supposed to be
grace.
3.
I'm pretty sure. Forgive me if I'm wrong on this point, but he clearly hasn't, like, won for good and all.
I just can't believe we're still doing this sanctuary shit.
It is rather shocking.
13 fucking episodes in one location.
Yeah.
And going back and forth to the mansion, which was already a location we've been in for a million years.
What do you think? What do you make of the aspect that we're dealing with here? There's a new plot line that we're kind of understanding, which is, like, Emilia's new infatuation and dependence on Subaru. That, first of all, I remember a couple episodes before this started when Emilia didn't give a fuck and wanted Subaru as far away from her as possible. But that's changed. But you know what? To its credit, after, like, the whale battle, saving Emilia's life, all that, that's in real life, that'll connect you to someone pretty hard. And that just aside from all the other stuff they've already done together. So Emilia getting attached to Subaru is a plot element I think is kind of cool, and I do like it. And because it goes to the other thing of, so when we first meet Emilia, she's like this half-elf who looks just like the Witch of Envy, and so people hate her and they're racist against her and all that stuff. And basically she has no one close to her, and the only person she can kind of depend on is Roswaal. And we've now learned that Roswaal ain't nobody she can depend on anyway. He's manipulating her to some grand end. Who knows exactly what he's getting at, but he's not a good boy, at least not a pure good boy. So now she's got someone who says he loves her and really seems to care about her. And it was making me think that, like, when you've got, like, a girl who's, like, sociable and outgoing, and she could probably make attachments and break them off in healthy ways, but with Emilia, he had to really crack that nut and break it open. She had built this protective shell around herself, probably. And then he finally cracked it open. So now for the first time, she has somebody she probably really cares about. And she clearly has, like, a doomsday device inside her in the form of Puck, who we've already seen basically end the world at least one time. So the stakes are really high for getting close to this girl and then breaking her heart.
Actually, we learned Puck did not end the world after killing Subaru because he got killed by Reinhardt.
He was going to, but he got Excalibur. That's true. He would have if it wasn't for some of the heroes. So I guess Puck's power level is now somewhat in question. It's not truly Doomsday level.
I mean, Reinhardt's sword was like, this sword can't even be drawn unless it's like the worst threat possible.
Yeah, so obviously the stakes are high when Puck gets serious, but fair enough. So, I mean, did you appreciate the whole, like, there were shots of Emilia, like, after it looked like Subaru had disappeared and abandoned her, and she's, like, emotionally broken, and I mean, this might be, it looks like the hints are setting up that it's that emotional brokenness might be what transforms her into the Witch of Envy in some way. And again, we don't know that for sure, but that looks like where they're going with it. And of course, we shouldn't forget episode 1, when he finally asked that girl's name. She introduced herself as Satella. That's still an unexplained thing as to what was going on there. Why is that her name as opposed to Emilia? So what'd you make of all that stuff going on?
I think you're right. I think she's going to turn out to be... I mean, I think it's always been hinted at that she is, if not strongly connected to the Witch of Envy, just her. So,
do you think it's bullshit that she cares about Subaru like so much suddenly?
I mean, it's really confusing with this show because when you go back through the fucking time loops over and over again, it's hard for me to like parse what do the characters know versus what I know. Like,
right.
How, like, keeping track of what all happened before a particular save point, you know? Particularly in this arc where the save point has moved into, like, I think we're now past the first trial, right?
Yes.
So, like, for me, remembering exactly what happened between, like before the end of the first trial versus before the end of the second trial, it gets really muddy.
Yeah.
So, like, how long have Subaru and Emilia been together at this point? Like, when they were coming to the sanctuary, there's the whole scene where she, like, tells him to sit next to her, or she says, like, oh, you used to come and sit next to me all the time, and I thought it was weird and annoying, but now I'm just used to it.
Right,
like, and I would think it was weird if you didn't do it. So, like, they've been together enough, at least by then, that she has a pretty good sense of him. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable for her to be attached because she has no other friends. But, and I think that, like you said, it's going to be eventually, like, Subaru's the only person she ever tried to be, like, open with and actually let in. And so to watch him die perpetually or something will probably fuck her up. But who knows? Who knows what fourth dimensional shit we're playing around with?
Yeah, and you know, the scenes of seeing sort of, although during the second trial, like what would have happened after Subaru killed himself, I liked that entire sequence when I first saw it, because I thought, ooh, what are the implications of, is this like a new like power system that's coming into play? We're seeing that like all these deaths actually have some sort of like karmic value, or it's like Homestuck, where doomed timelines continue to exist and like other realities and can influence the real world. It looks like none of that's true. It was just a vision of what would have happened as a way to inform Subaru to value his life.
She says something like some of those possibilities could exist.
Okay. That's super vague,
yeah.
And we don't
just like
know what to make of it. True. But I mean, you know, beyond that, at the end of the sequence, it looks like Subaru's mind is breaking and he's gonna lose it because he's experiencing this so many times. Oh my god, so fucking brutal. When we see Rem appear and we get we get Rem pilled once again with getting cheered up by the blue one. But it's not Rem at all, because Rem wouldn't just be so placating. She'd ask me to lift my burden again and get back to work and whatnot and clean my room. It's actually the Witch of Lust, whose name I forget, but the big fluffy one.
She's a cute.
And then we meet the other, I mean, who else? We met, we hadn't met Sloth yet. I think that was the only other one. So we've met all the witches now.
They're all fucking one-note, goddamn obnoxious assholes.
The only one I like is Echidna, because she's the only one with like an actual personality and goals and trying to do anything. Oh, I'm so evil, you guys. I suspect the woman doth say she's evil too much.
I'm starting to think that, like, I'm not sure if there's real bad guys in this show or if it's going to turn out that, like, everything was according to Keikaku of God.
Even Roswaal. Sure, Roswaal murders Ram and Beast Boy, but he knows about Return by Death. So I think, like in that very scene, actually, which I thought was a cool moment, he notices, like, Subaru, I can see in your eyes, you're shocked, but you're not, like, sad. And it's because Subaru is getting a little fucking jaded. When he sees people die, he knows he can reset and save them, and he's definitely going to. And so, is this guy so much more evil? Like, when Subaru does a loop, you know who dies? Literally every person on the planet, because all of those possibilities end and we start again with a new batch in like a new timeline. Yeah. So is it like, when you think about it from that sense?
Think about everybody who's like in those 4 days that he was doing shit, like everybody whose lives went amazingly, like, oh, I just won the lottery, time resets.
Well, that doesn't mean that won't happen now. You would think that the only thing would change would be the people who interact with Subaru.
Butterfly effect, dog.
I guess that's fair to say. And I mean, we're never going to deal with the consequences of that, presumably. That might be a little beyond the scope, and that's fine. Yeah,
I don't want this to be any scoped up at all. This season 2, part 1 of ReZero was one of the most frustrating and obnoxious things I've ever watched. I had not liked ReZero when I watched it for the first time. I was endeared to certain elements of it when we watched it for this show,
there were good parts,
as we talked about. But just getting locked in this fucking Sanctuary arc with all these new characters that I hate, none of them were interesting, none of them did anything cool. Some of them are cool looking. Echidna is the only noteworthy new character of this fucking season.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else will stay in my memory at all.
But Digi, look at all the amazing new character designs that are totally real, fleshed out characters. There's nothing to be impressed by just a flashy new character design. Wow, Minerva the Wrath one who's like angry? Oh, she's my waifu now. I care so much that she's like a Tsundere and she heals with punches? What? Is that how that works? Kids, don't simp. For anyone, including fictional characters.
3 out of 10.
Now, to be fair, this is the first half of a season. So maybe all this will be 10 out of 10 big brain recontextualized. I'm a little skeptical if that's going to be the case. I mean, you were working your heart out trying to pay attention and care, which for Digi is notable.
I literally was just like staring at the conversations going like, why am I being told this? Like, why are you talking?
Yeah.
When are you going to say the important part? Just say the important part.
They take so long to get to the important part.
When Echidna was giving her speech, and I was just like, I can't believe it. She's just like slowly spinning with her arms in midair for 2 fucking minutes. She could not take it.
It was Subarashi. I don't know what else to say about it.
I've had shows that were a struggle to stay awake due on this show. There were certain episodes of Decadence. I got a little on it. This was fucking, I was like just, oh no, like, painful. 3 out of 10.
I give it a, you know what? I'm not going to give it a rating until I see the second half. Then I'll give it a rating.
Fair.
Maybe it'll impress me. But we're done. We've met our obligation.
Oh, I mean, we're going to have to watch more ReZero eventually, but not for a while.
But we'll be with you when we do it, ladies and gentlemen.
Maybe you'll have convinced us to love it. Maybe you'll have explained all the shit in the comments that we didn't. By all means, by the way, like, if we get stuff wrong, please explain it in detail so that we can fix it later.
People have done that, and I appreciate it, because I did look at a lot of those comments and was like, oh, so there's a difference between an authority, which is granted to an apostle, versus a witch, versus a creation.
There's apostles? Which ones are the apostles?
I believe, I think if you're granted an authority, you are an apostle. Wait. But remember when Subaru was given the authority of greed by Echidna, which allowed him to command the lolly elf girl. So he had multiple, and he said he had the authority of sloth in him before. I don't remember which is which. I just know that there's some shit going on here that involves some witches and some superpowers, and I think they can be passed around. And I challenge you to pretend that this matters, because it doesn't. We know the broad strokes of what's going on, and I am following it closely. I get it. It's just not that great. That's my final word on the subject.
I don't know if I get it, but I literally think it would be easier for somebody to just tell me what happens in this show than to actually watch it, because it would take so much less time. Final point.
I was saying this as we were watching. It's that, so we've said there's a compounded, conflated, like multiplicative issues, which is that this show is incredibly technical. A lot of it does matter at times that you don't expect, and they rant for so long about things that don't seem that interesting, but they slip in those lines of significant importance right in there. So if you look away for 1 second, you're completely blindsided. And it's fair to criticize if we miss something like that. I get that, but I'm just saying, cut us a little bit of slack if we miss some of these details.
This is what a ReZero conversation would be like.
Yeah.
It'd be like, Barusu, you didn't take out the laundry. Oh, I was gonna take out the laundry, but I forgot. Well, that's why you're so useless. Haha, well, you know, there's gotta be some kind of magic in this world that could do the laundry quicker, right? Oh, well, you want to learn about magics? I'll have to, you don't have the brain capacity to learn about magics. What do you mean I don't have the brain capacity to learn about magics? Like, it would be like, true. And then at some point, she'll tell him the magic spell.
Yeah, you're right,
and then he'll do the laundry, and you'll be like, that was 15 minutes.
You gotta watch the show in the right frame of mind, I guess. And if you're not like loving the personality interactions of these characters, you're not gonna fall into that.
Ram and Subaru. Ram is the only character that has, like, legitimate, entertaining chemistry with Subaru.
I don't even like Echidna. I like Echidna as, like, a person, but her dialogue is often insufferable.
Yeah. I mean, like, Rem and Emilia and Ram are the only characters whose interactions with Subaru are ever good. Like, Ram and Emilia have good interactions with him in the first season.
Yeah,
Not really anything noteworthy here. Ram is funny.
Yeah, Ram's funny.
Everyone else is fucking insufferable in this show. Like, I can't take any of them. Some of the princesses from the first season were okay. Nobody in this season was interesting except for Echidna. I hated them all.
This has been a rough patch, I think. And hopefully
I
it
want to
improves.
like the stupid elf girl, but she hasn't fucking done anything.
She hasn't done a single thing. Maybe she will. I guess we'll find out in January or so when season 2 continues.
Yes.
So see you then on that episode of
Look
KHANTENT.
forward to us talking about Slime Isekai as our next Isekai, which is an Isekai I love.
Cool.
It will be fun to talk about because there's lots of stuff in that show and
I'm
none
excited.
of it's shit. And we will also be covering Dr. Stone.
Yeah, let's do it.
Both Slime and Stone are getting new seasons in January alongside this, so we want to be caught up on everything in time. So join us for those as our next couple of shows in between the fall seasonal shit that's going to start coming out soon.
And join us for our $10 bonus episodes on subscribestar.com/KHANTENT. And that's going to do it, everybody. We'll see you next time on another episode of KHANTENT. Sayonara.